Everything in this fucking country is racist, including going out to eat. And while I just had this incredible experience where I got on this last-minute flight Thursday morning to be at dinner in New York City on Thursday night to be served food by celebrities, I mean, check it out. I got served hors d'oeuvres by Gayle King, was in the same room as Orlando Bloom, got to meet Chrissy Teigen. It was an incredible event I somehow managed to sneak my way into, hosted by One Fair Wage. But I'm a little ashamed that it took that event for me to learn personally what the actual history of tipping culture is in our country. And of course, it's fucking racism. After the Civil War, tipping culture in essence was a way to keep black people working for free without them being slaves. They would, hire recently emancipated slaves and then not pay them and force them to rely on the generosity of customers to tip them to earn a living. Something I didn't know, but is sadly unsurprising. You might be thinking to yourself, okay, great, that's horrible, and very American, but that was a long time ago, right? And it's different now. And you're right, it is different now. Now they're federally required to pay tipped workers $2.13 an hour. And that was passed in 1991. Other than that, though, not much has changed, at least in places that don't require a higher minimum wage for tipped workers. And if we're being honest, $2.13 an hour is, basically $0 in 2025. As a result, tipped workers are 2.5 times more likely to live in poverty. Like pretty much everything else we've ever done to be oppressive assholes to brown people, we've just ended up screwing ourselves in the process. Because now service work in the United States accounts for 79% of the US workforce. So what was at one point just a shtick to allow racist white Southerners to continue not paying black people for their labor even after they were emancipated has now become a systematic tool to depress the wages of the entire economy. Because here's the thing about a minimum wage, that's the foundation and the base that everybody else's wages are based on. Because when the starting wage is low, everybody has to climb twice as far to get to a living wage. You are way less likely to get a raise simply for your tenure or cost of living adjustment when they can pay somebody else less than you if you demand it. And this has gotten to the point where it affects all wages across the board because this is such an outweighted factor in our economy. I don't know if you've noticed, but none of our wages have kept up with the cost of living, whether you're a tipped worker or not. In fact, working full-time for just regular minimum wage is $15,000 a year. That's like 3 drinks and dinner in New York City. God, that place is expensive. And when people are making such little money that they can't afford to live, it means that they cannot afford nearly as many of the goods and services that, like, say, your job provides, which means it makes it harder for you to get a raise and have a living wage and go spend money on goods and services that other people's jobs provide. It's a vicious cycle that keeps the bottom 95% of us oppressed regardless of your skin color or socioeconomic status. Also, a few rich fucks can steal all of the extra value that is created with our labor. And then because people can't afford to survive, we end up writing all of these big corporations and their wealthy owners giant welfare checks with our tax dollars. Because the reality is that all welfare is corporate welfare. If a Walmart employee needs SNAP benefits to put food on their table because they can't afford it with their own wage from working at Walmart, we are subsidizing Walmart's payroll. If a McDonald's employee needs housing assistance, that's us giving a welfare check to McDonald's to subsidize their payroll. Because the reality is that it doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing. It takes X amount of dollars to live, and either your employer can pay that so you can afford all the things you need to live, or the difference needs to be made up with government benefits. That, or people end up homeless and kids go hungry. So a below living minimum wage is corporate welfare that we all pay for whether you make a living wage or not. And I don't know about you, but a single mom getting a couple of my tax dollars to put food on her table to feed her kids bothers me a hell of a lot less than us writing billions of dollars in welfare checks to the Waltons. So now that I see I've sold you on why low wages are bad, how do we fix it? And that is where it gets really complicated. What we got to do is, and now try to stick with me here, raise the minimum wage. That's it. That's steps 1 through 10. I mean, we should also tax billionaires more. So, like, if we want to overachieve, do the extra credit, that should be the other thing. I know, radical idea, right? We've only done it 22 times since minimum wage was implemented in 1938. And we basically raised it every 3 years between 1938 and 2009. And now it hasn't been raised in the last 16 years. And that's why nobody can afford to fucking live. It is really that goddamn simple. Pay people a living wage, they can afford to live. It's not hard fucking math. Unless, of course, you're stupid. And God, why are so many people so fucking stupid? And look, guys, basically every single fight that has brought us better living conditions, better working conditions, better living wages, civil rights, almost all of it has been carried on the wind of economic populism and fought for by labor organizations. Working class solidarity has always been the key to victory for all of us. We all do better when we all do better, except for fucking billionaires. So if you want to know how you can help us win these fights, join a union if you have the ability. And if you don't, support unions. Vote on ballot initiatives to raise minimum wages, especially for tipped workers. Vote for people who run on raising the minimum wage. And then support organizations who have taken a new approach to this fight, like One Fair Wage and the Affordability Pact, who are standing on the shoulders of labor unions and now fighting for people and organizing for people who don't have that opportunity. They are kicking ass getting wages raised for people all over the country by pushing local legislation and ballot initiatives, lobbying local politicians, doing amazing fundraising and awareness dinners where I get to go to New York City and get served by celebrities just to tell you about it. They even paid service workers during the pandemic when everything was shut down, and they didn't even tell me about that. I have a personal friend who just saw I was doing stuff with them. He's like, that organization is incredible. They paid my wage during COVID, helped me keep my head above water. And that is the kind of solidarity we need. So please go check them out. Just Google One Fair Wage and all kinds of stuff will come up about them. And if you can support them financially, that's great. It's an incredible cause. It's fighting for all of us. But if you can't, just tell people about them and their mission, because it is incredibly important and well worth sharing. Because it's organizations like One Fair Wage that are going to get us through what we are all currently going through.